Welcome to today's edition of 3-Minute Halacha as we continue the study of the Melacha of Koteiv, of writing. Today, let's consider the status of computer writing, specifically the writing that appears on a computer screen. Obviously, the use of a computer is much more than just the question of the output on the screen, but rather the input. How you press the keyboard and how you get those letters on the screen involve many other prohibitions on Shabbat, and therefore the use of a computer on Shabbat is prohibited, even if what appears on the screen is not Koteiv. But where it's significant to take this into consideration is in situations of both security needs and in medical needs. And so, for example, in a hospital, if a doctor must record information on Shabbat about a patient's health that are critical to the health of that patient, is it better to use a computer with shinuyim, with different ways of entering the information than you normally would on Shabbat, and having the information on a computer screen? Or would it be better to actually write that information? According to Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, using a computer with a shinui is a good and valid option. The rabbis of Tzomet go a step further and say to make sure that that which appears on the computer screen is only midrabanan, because there's no pen and paper involved, but also to make sure that that image should be considered temporary in every way. They suggest making sure that there is a screensaver installed on the computer screen. And so not only will the letters be there in a temporary fashion, but definitely when the screensaver turns on automatically, those letters will disappear. That reinforces that it is temporary, at most Rabbanan, and because there are the necessities for security or for health, therefore, it would be a way that is better than using pen and paper. Interestingly, there are two other implications of this understanding of a computer screen. One is when it comes to the question of God's name. What happens if on the screen you see God's name? Are you allowed to close the computer? Are you allowed to erase that information? Are you allowed to do anything? Or would you be violating the prohibition of destroying God's name? Rabbi Ovadia Yosef writes that actually it's permitted to turn off the computer even if there was God's name on the screen, or to delete it. Because one, he says, there was no intent for Kedusha, for sanctity of that screen. And again, he said that ultimately that image is not writing at all. It's a combination of pixels, of dots of light, as he describes it. And therefore, if you were to erase it, it is permitted. Another implication is on Chol HaMoed. When on Chol HaMoed, we're not supposed to be writing in a normal fashion. Therefore, a person using a computer would not be writing in the normal fashion. It's not Koteiv, and you'd be allowed to use the computer, even though there are poskim who then say you wouldn't be allowed to print on Chol HaMoed, but to use the computer itself should be permitted because it's not the melacha of Koteiv. Ultimately, the computer screen is an option when there is extreme need, or in the other circumstances when it comes to the questions of Shemot and also the question of Chol HaMoed.